You're watching Barnstable in Focus. I'm Sarah Beal Fletcher, and joining me today is our town manager, Mark Ells. Mark, thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So we're going to talk about everyone's favorite, the budget. I want to point our viewing public to this wonderful piece of paper that I have here. This is the budget action calendar for the year up until next June 30th. And this is available on the town's website. I recommend everybody kind of pull it up. It's on the finance department's webpage. And it gives you an idea of everything that's going to be happening with the budget until the end of this fiscal year. So we're going to talk about some of the things that are coming up between now and December that I think they're important for our public to kind of understand and have the knowledge of what these things are. So the first thing we're going to start with is CIP, which is Capital Improvement Plan projects, because those are going to be due in early November, just be submitted for the review process that we go through. So let's talk about that process and what that's like.
Sure. So CIP, capital improvement projects, two general areas of the budget, the operating budget and the capital budget. So capital, we do that first. If you go to our charter, you can also, you can look at the schedule certainly to try to keep up to date on what we're going to be talking about and when. But if you go to our charter, many things that our charter spells out have deadlines and timelines are budget related. So this just isn't a kind of a unscheduled sort of process. It's very rigorous. Mm-hmm. It's rigid. It's required by our charter, by law for us. The council approves the budget, and the town manager prepares the budget for review and approval. Mm-hmm. So the first one we do is capital. So capital looks at everything that we are looking to manage, typically assets, the word that we use a lot. Mm-hmm. It can be a building, it can be land, it can be roads and bridges. It's very typically linked to a dollar amount, but with those assets, there are also planning that occurs. There is design that occurs and bid preparation that occurs. And then there's the actual physical, for example, construction of a roadway or a bridge. Right. All of that falls under capital. So very typically we are laying out a 20-year plan with a 5-year capital improvement plan. So if you go and look at the upcoming or prior year would be fiscal year 25. We're looking at we're looking at 26, and if you look at 25, for example, that's been approved, it will be the year we're in, the fiscal year we're in, but it'll be looking at a 5-year window of right. what we're anticipating. And then if you look within that category, it'll say, playgrounds, for example. Just a lot of times people don't know where budget items fall. But we may only be at conceptual plan. Right. And then when you look at how long it takes within that 5-year window, we may or may not be starting with an idea and ending with a project. Mm-hmm. Separate from that, we also do master planning for all of our assets. And then we have master plans for roads. You hear a lot about sewer and water, but we have them for dredging. We have them for facilities. We have them for playgrounds. We have them for sidewalk. I mean, every asset that we have these. And from those plans, we draw um, a calendar of when we would like to see it implemented and prioritizing it, and then looking at how we manage it, which can be either to the end of the useful life or to failure, depending on what it is. You wouldn't want to manage a water system to failure.
Right.
But you may say to yourself, well, I'm going to keep an eye on the roof on this building. And as long as it's working the way it's supposed to, if I can get another 5 years out of it, great. But let's check it every year,
Right.
because as soon as, so then you're managing it not to useful life, but to failure. And so to managing to failure, number one, it can't be like a safety or a regulatory
Right.
thing. But it can be to extend the lives of assets, especially when you're maintaining them properly. You can look at roads that way too.
Yeah.
Just keep checking them, keep checking them, keep checking them, as long as there isn't major flaws. So all of this is built into what we bring forward each year for our council to consider as our capital improvement plan. And that's what you've just referenced in the budget calendar. Years ago when I was at Public Works, we were in charge of it. Now, and that was one of the very beneficial things of having been the director of Public Works, because, it's a huge part of what we as a municipality do.
Yep.
And so it gave me a working knowledge of it, quite honestly. The challenge beyond just identifying all of this and planning for it is to figure out how you're going to fund it. I mean, the reality is we are an enormous community geographically. We have a tremendous number of assets. People don't think that. They very much think on a small scale. Barnstable's right behind Boston, Worcester, and Springfield.
Yep.
We have 500 miles of road alone in Barnstable. People don't really necessarily grasp that. We'll grasp that. We're probably, maybe 2/3. Most communities on the Cape are about a third our size,
Yeah.
quite honestly. Yet we get compared all the time, and we get asked questions. What's the point of that? We need to manage that.
Yeah.
We need to have resources to be able to pay for that. And that capital, being capital. And we probably try to do, between 50 and 300 million a year in capital alone every year. And that's a challenge to do, quite honestly.
They're not small projects.
Oh, well, sewers, you hear the magnitude of the numbers, but certainly our roadway system alone is tens of millions of dollars a year just to maintain it in a level that's good or above good. And we do that. We have a pavement management system in Barnstable. We look at all the public roads and the bridges and the drainage and the sidewalks but one of the things in Barnstable is we have 1,800 roads and only 700 of them are public. 1,100 private. Private is the responsibility of the private property owners that live on the roads. People don't know that either. So when we're planning, we're only planning for a portion. Now the lineal miles of those roads are a lot longer because they're the bigger roads.
Right.
But and that's only one piece of the CIP. So there's a lot that goes into it. We quite honestly never stop doing budget. I think I walked in the door in 1989 and I've been doing budget ever since. And it's just
There's
continuous.
no start, there's no end, it's just continuous.
And then when
it's where you are in it.
It's where we are in it, and then where on an annual basis our charter really lays out where we need to be compliant. And we have timelines. Once it's submitted for review, we give our staff instruction on what needs to be done, both with capital and operating. So sorry, I went way beyond. I went way beyond capital.
No, it's great. That's great. I think that's important. I'm going to skip a couple of things and we'll go to decision packages because I think that's kind of on. It's not the same level as CIP, obviously, because the decision packages are usually smaller than that. But it's department operational budget every year.
Yeah. So there's three major segments to. Well, when we think about our budget. When we move from capital's separate, and typically DPW, schools, and airport bring in the majority of the capital budget. Every once in a while, someone else will come in and ask. But typically, those are the three major departments that bring it in. Jump over to operations. All of our departments come in with a presentation relevant to their departmental operating budgets. Within departmental operating budgets, there are three major categories: salaries, expenses, and operating capital. Now you might say, capital, you just talked about capital, the CIP. Well, these are smaller
Right.
sorts of capital, typically 50,000 or less, but that's kind of a planning rule. That's not a hard rule, because if it's above, then we look to maybe we should be putting it in the
Right.
capital program. Decision packages are part of that side of the budget planning, the operational budget planning. And what decision packages are is when you are asking for something more than what you already have in your operating budget. And you need to add a person, or you need to add more expense money to pay for something that you're doing, a new program or a
Right.
new service that you're offering. And it's interesting because one of the things that's really important that everybody, including staff, but certainly the public, understand is that when you do any budget, but certainly your operating budget and decision packages, a lot of times people will say, well, we don't have the money to do that. Okay, but it's almost like a list of liabilities. You need to say what it is you need, and then we will take the resources that we are given in a prioritized order, and we will apply them to those priorities. But please never, a lot of times people will say, well, do I really have to fill? We'll never get that position. Yes, you do have to fill it out, because if you need it, then we need to know it.
Right.
If you don't identify it with a decision package, we will never know it. Now, the interesting thing is sometimes money comes from other places other than the town.
Right.
And so whether it's capital or operating, it's always important to have those lists. People will say to me, well, and I know people are passionate about lots of things, but certainly playgrounds. Well, where did you get that money? Well, that money came from CPC, which is another revenue source, but has limitations. There's only 3 eligible areas that you can use that money for. One of them is a playground. So if we get CPC money for a playground, then great, we can proceed, versus in competition with our public roads money, for example, because we got to keep our roads up. So by posting those, I refer to them as liabilities, meaning things that we need that we don't have funding for yet. If money becomes available to us, we may be able to fund something with an eligible area of revenue that we couldn't otherwise do with general tax dollars. So as thorough as we can be every year in updating both the list and the numbers, because we don't want, you think about inflation. Think about how much more eggs cost now, right? Well, that's true for your municipal budget too.
Yes.
Everything costs more.
Yep.
And so without accurate accounting of this, it makes it difficult for us to have the resources we need to provide the programs and services that our public is asking for. I'll stop there.
That's great. So 2 other items that I want to kind of talk about that are going to happen between now and December is there's going to be a calendar year fee hearing. So there's 2 town manager fee hearings a year. One is for calendar year and one is for fiscal year. So the calendar year fee hearing this year is going to be on November 13th, and that's for any fee that changes as of January 1st.
Yes.
Correct.
That calendar year,
Calendar year.
versus fiscal year.
Yep.
Correct. Yes.
So what kind of items could we see possibly? I'm not going to, you don't know. It's still over a month away to the calendar year, but what kind of fee, do you know what kind of fees are usually in
Beach stickers
Beach
are
stickers, yeah.
a very well-known one, but
Yep.
there are many others. There's 2 areas that fees fall under. It either falls under town council or town manager. Most of them fall under manager, but not all of them. So twice a year we have the hearings prior to the first of the calendar year, prior to the first of the fiscal year, depending on which cycle your fees are on. And so the one that's coming up will be for calendar year fees, and for example, beach stickers are one of them. But there's a whole host of them
Oh, yeah.
and the public should take a look at that. We often get comments from the public, and we spend a fair amount. It's a wonderful opportunity to inform and educate our public on the way we're financially structured,
Yeah.
because some of our facilities, like our water, wastewater, and solid waste, are all enterprise funds that have been voted by the town council as full cost recovery. That means you have to charge as much as it costs you to provide that.
Yep.
That's one of the things, we get this a lot with solid waste. They'll say, "Whoa, the town next to us is half the price." Yeah, because they use general tax dollars
Yeah.
to subsidize. We don't here in Barnstable. And so it's in fact, we're one of the few communities, certainly in Massachusetts, that has full cost recovery. That's been in place since '91, so it's not like it just happened.
No.
It's been around a long time. So depending on what type of fee it is, what the revenue source is, what type of enterprise fund, or some fees fall under general fund, and it just means that, okay, we're going to bring in tax dollars. We're going to bring in fees, but tax dollars will pay that difference that's there. Like the Youth and Community Center. The HYCC is not, it's an enterprise fund, but it's not full cost recovery.
Right.
But you can charge fees not in an enterprise fund as well. And it becomes part of what our revenue source. So we have tax dollars, and then we have various fees, fines, etc.
Right.
And that'd be a good question for Mark Milne when you
Right.
have him in. Let him go into detail
Right.
on, but majority of our money comes in actually through general taxation.
Right. And the calendar year fee hearing, and each one of these hearings that you do hold, it's you have it, you present the public with what the changes will be, and then there's a certain amount of time.
30 days.
I was going to say a month, so 30 days that people can comment, provide feedback on those proposed changes before you make your decision. So it's not like it's definite at the fee hearing. There will be 30 days after the fee hearing in order for people to provide comment if they have any comment or questions or concerns that they want to bring up.
Yes, absolutely. That's
Great.
the case. And we typically, I'll read them in, or Andy will read them in, the assistant town manager, and then the department head will give a justification,
Right.
and then Mark Milne will speak to them if he has comment, and then the public will speak to it, and then when we conclude that, we will take it under advisement for 30 days. So if you hold the fee hearing on the 15th of the month, then 30 days later, on the 14th of the next month, would be when we would either approve as proposed, approve for less than, or not approve, and they would stay as they were the prior year. You don't have to reapprove them once approved.
Right. Okay.
It's a process.
It is a process. And then the last item in the budget calendar is the Joint Town Council School Committee review of financial conditions. That's scheduled for December 4th, and that kind of gives both the council and the school committee where we're at financially as they start going into
right.
Yep.
The school superintendent and I will we meet every other week or weekly, depending on how our schedules are working, but no, we don't go more than 2 weeks. And we talk about many things, but certainly budget is a big part, both capital and operating. And so, Dr. Ahern and I are looking at what sort of relationship a lot of people get confused about the 60-40 that we talk about. What the 60-40 is a control mechanism so that when we're planning for our budgets, we understand that 60% of the growth dollars that we'll receive in the next year will go to schools and 40% will go to the town. People think it's, of the total budget, the schools get 60 and the town. No, that is not what it is, and it never has been. It's growth dollars. Now, where do growth dollars come from? Growth dollars come from 2.5. And you should have Mark explain 2.5 too. And there's two criteria there that apply to that 2.5.
Yep.
But so we go up by 2.5%. Now think about that versus inflation. What's inflation running at? A lot more than 2.5.
Yeah, way more than 2.5.
So cities and towns, if you want to go in and look at MMA right now, there's
Yeah.
a big article on how cities and towns across the Commonwealth are way behind
Yep.
because of what's gone on recently
Mm-hmm.
with double-digit inflation.
Yep.
And so, but back to you've got 2.5, you've got growth, and then you've got other changes like outside funding sources where we may get more money. And then basically we take that amount of money in a given year and we split it up 60-40 from planning standpoint. So the base budget plus that 60% of the growth the schools plan for in that fiscal year.
Right.
Same for us, base budget plus
40.
And the way we make up the difference is we have free cash reserves that we can augment on a year-to-year basis, however the council approves them for use, meaning it could be capital, it could be to supplement, but that's not reoccurring money, free cash.
Right.
So that's a problem, because if you hire somebody, if the free cash is gone, there's no money next year
Yeah.
to pay for that. So it's not really a great strategy for operations, but we can absolutely subsidize with that. So when we get to the school committee, Mark Milne lays all of that out in much better detail than I am, and informs both council and school committee of what we're looking at in planning for the next fiscal year budget. And I do anticipate moving forward again this year with 60-40. I mean, some people were talking about, well, you should change that number. If you changed it 2% or even 10%, it's a very small amount of money that would change. So people will argue, well, they should get more or they should get less. But the amount of actual money that changing that, it's not millions of dollars.
Right.
It's much smaller amounts of money. And when we're looking at major need for financial resource, it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah,
no.
that's
You
not the
need to
place.
find you need to have a growth strategy to match the revenue that you need to bring in from that growth to pay for programs, services, capital.
Yeah.
You need to consider other outside funding sources, which we do, and or you need to look at overrides or debt exclusions.
Great.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of diversity
No, there is not. I think you're right. Mark Milne does an amazing job of kind of explaining all of this in terms that most anyone can understand. I always enjoy talking to him about budget and money because he's very good at explaining those things in a way that, anyone can kind of understand, and he'll answer any questions you have. So watching that budget presentation between council and the school committee, for as much as it's for them, it's also for the public.
It is, and in the case of the relationship between the school committee and the town council, it is the town council that approves the budgets for all.
Right.
So it's very important that those two sit together, because the schools are, if you'll think of our overall budget, you got fixed costs, you got municipal, and you got schools. Schools are a third, roughly. And so, and the school committee and the superintendent oversee that third, but they don't approve it.
Right.
They give it to me. I include it in the overall budget for council consideration. So the town council school committee relationship at that meeting and being able to listen to Mark and ask questions if they have it is critical. Yeah. It's also required in our charter.
Yep. The charter is a very interesting thing. Everyone should read it. I know
they should read it.
We've talked about it before.
And change it. I have so many people say to me, they'll ask me questions and I'll say, well, if you don't like it, then change it.
Yeah.
Vote and change it.
Yep.
I mean, you got to get it on a ballot, but
right.
Vote and change it.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of our process.
Yes.
Don't complain about it.
Yeah. Make the change.
Absolutely.
Excellent, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Great.